Lila had always been the kind of person people described as easy. Easy to talk to. Easy to work with. Easy to ask favors from. And that last one, though nobody said it out loud, was the truth that quietly defined her life. She lived in a mid-sized city in the United States, in a small but neat apartment on the third floor of an aging brick building. Every morning, she woke up at 6:30, made her coffee, and sat by the window scrolling through her messages before getting ready for work. There were always messages. "Hey Lila, can you swap shifts with me? Can you cover this report? I'm behind. Can you help me move this weekend? Can you look over this email before I send it?" She always said yes. At first, it felt good. Being needed felt like being valued. Every "thank you" gave her a small sense of worth, like she mattered because she made other people's lives easier. But over time, something shifted. People stopped asking like it was a favor, and started expecting it like it was her role. At work, Lila was known as the reliable one. She worked in a small operations team for a logistics company, nothing glamorous, just coordinating shipments, managing delays, solving problems before they became disasters. Her manager, Greg, leaned on her heavily. "Lila, I need you to stay late and fix this. Lila, can you handle this client? They trust you. Lila, I know it's last minute, but..." And she always responded the same way, "Sure, no problem." Even when it was a problem. Even when she was exhausted. Even when she had plans. One Friday evening, she sat alone in the office long after everyone else had left. The fluorescent lights hummed above her as she stared at her screen, eyes burning. Her phone buzzed. It was her friend Maya. "Where are you? We've been waiting." Lila glanced at the time. 8:47 p.m. She had promised she'd be there by 7. "I'm so sorry. Work got crazy again," she typed. There was a pause. Then, "You always say that." Lila stared at the message, something tight forming in her chest. She typed back quickly, "I'll make it up to you." She always said that too. The truth was, Lila didn't just fear disappointing people, she feared what would happen if she stopped being the person they liked. Because being liked had become her identity. If she wasn't helpful, accommodating, and agreeable, then who was she? The turning point didn't come dramatically. It came quietly, like most real changes do. It was a Tuesday morning. Lila walked into the office with her usual coffee, ready to start the day. Before she even sat down, Greg called her into his office. "Hey, I need you to take over Jessica's project," he said. Lila blinked. "But I already have." I know," he interrupted. "But you handle pressure better than anyone." That sentence used to feel like a compliment. Now, it felt like a trap. She hesitated. Just for a second. And Greg noticed. "Is that a problem?" he asked, his tone shifting slightly. There it was. That subtle pressure. That expectation. Say yes. Be the good one. Lila felt the familiar instinct rise, to smile, to nod, to say, "Of course." But something inside her resisted. A quiet voice she had been ignoring for years finally spoke, "You're tired." She swallowed. I don't think I can take it on right now." The room went still. Greg leaned back slightly. "What do you mean?" I mean, I already have a full workload," she said, her voice steadier than she expected. "If I take this too, something else will suffer." There was a long pause. Not loud. Not dramatic. But heavy. Greg's expression changed, not angry, but different. Less warm. Less easy. "Okay," he said finally. "I'll figure something else out." "No, thank you." No reassurance. Just distance. Lila walked out of his office with her heart racing. She expected to feel proud. Instead, she felt uneasy. All day, she noticed small changes. Greg didn't stop by her desk like he usually did. He didn't include her in a quick discussion. He assigned a task to someone else without consulting her. Nothing obvious, but enough to feel. By lunchtime, her thoughts were spiraling. Did I mess up? Does he think I'm not reliable anymore? Did I just damage my reputation? For years, being liked had protected her. Now that she stepped even slightly out of that role, the protection was gone. That evening, Lila met Maya for coffee. She almost canceled old habits, but forced herself to go. Maya studied her as she sat down. "You look tired," she said. "I am," Lila admitted. There was a pause before Lila added, "I said no today." "At work?" Maya raised an eyebrow. "You said no?" "Yeah. And?" Lila looked down at her cup. It felt bad. Maya let out a small laugh. "Of course it did." Lila frowned. "Why would it feel bad to do the right thing?" "Because you're used to being liked, not respected," Maya said simply. The words landed harder than Lila expected. "What's the difference?" Lila asked. Maya leaned forward slightly. "When you're liked, people feel good around you. You make things easy for them." She paused. "But when you're respected, you're not always convenient." Lila sat quietly. "That means," Maya continued, "sometimes people won't like your boundaries. They won't like hearing no. They won't like that you're not always available." Lila's chest tightened. "So I have to choose?" she asked softly. "At first?" Maya nodded. "Yeah. Usually." That night, Lila couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the day. The hesitation. The no. Greg's reaction. For years, she had built her life on approval. And now, she was starting to see the cost of it. Being liked had given her comfort, but it had taken her freedom. The next few weeks tested her. Every day, there was another moment. Another request. Another opportunity to say yes. And every time she paused, even slightly, she felt that same discomfort. At work, "Can you stay late?" "I can stay for an hour, but not all evening." Silence. At home, "Can you help me move Saturday?" "I can't this weekend." Disappointment. With friends, "Can you plan everything like you always do?" "I think we should split it this time." Confusion. Each no chipped away at the version of Lila people were used to. And not everyone liked the new version. Some people pulled back. Some stopped asking. Some became colder. And that hurt. More than she expected. Because it forced her to face a difficult truth: some people didn't value her. They valued what she gave. One evening, Lila sat alone in her apartment, the silence heavier than usual. Her phone was quiet. Fewer messages. Fewer requests. Fewer people reaching out. For a moment, she wondered if she had made a mistake. If maybe being liked, even at her own expense, was easier. Safer. Loneliness has a way of making old patterns look attractive again. But then she remembered something small. Earlier that day, a colleague named Daniel had come up to her desk. "Hey," he said. "I noticed you pushed back on that timeline in the meeting." Lila hesitated. "Yeah. I just didn't think it was realistic." Daniel nodded. "It wasn't. Honestly, I wish I had said something." She blinked. "Really?" "Yeah," he said. "You've got backbone. People listen when you speak." Backbone. Nobody had ever used that word for her before. Not nice. Not helpful. Not easy. Something stronger. That night, sitting in the quiet of her apartment, Lila realized something important. Respect doesn't arrive loudly. It builds quietly. Slowly. And often, it starts in the exact moment you stop being liked. She wasn't there yet. She still felt the pull to please. Still felt the fear of disappointing others. But for the first time in her life, she was choosing something different. Even if it cost her. The silence didn't disappear overnight. If anything, it became more noticeable. In the weeks after Lila started setting boundaries, her world didn't collapse, but it shifted in ways she couldn't ignore. Her phone stayed quieter. Her inbox held fewer urgent favors. Her calendar, for the first time in years, had empty spaces. At first, that emptiness felt like loss. She had spent so long being needed that not being needed felt like being forgotten. At work, the change was sharper. Greg no longer leaned on her the same way. Tasks that once automatically landed on her desk were now distributed across the team. Meetings happened without her being the first person consulted. She noticed it all. Every small exclusion felt like a consequence. Every quiet moment made her question herself. Is this what respect looks like? She wondered. Or am I just less important now? That doubt followed her into everything. One Monday morning, the team gathered for a project review. A major client issue had come up, delays, miscommunication, a mess that needed quick decisions. In the past, all eyes would have turned to Lila. She would have stepped in, taken control, stayed late, fixed everything. This time, nobody looked at her. Greg started assigning roles. Jason, take lead on client communication. Jessica, track the logistics. I'll oversee everything. Lila sat there, listening. A strange mix of relief and disappointment settled in her chest. She wasn't overwhelmed. But she also wasn't seen. The meeting moved on, until something caught her attention. Jason was outlining a plan, and it had a flaw. A big one. The kind that would create more delays instead of solving them. Lila noticed it immediately. Old Lila would have jumped in without thinking. New Lila hesitated. Not because she didn't know the answer, but because she was still learning where she stood. Then she remembered something Maya had said, respect means speaking up, even when it's uncomfortable. Lila straightened slightly. I think there's a gap in that plan, she said. The room went quiet. Not shocked, just attentive. Jason frowned. What do you mean? Lila kept her voice calm. If we shift the schedule like that, the supplier overlap will cause another delay. We'll fix one issue and create another. Silence. Then Jessica nodded slowly. She's right. Greg looked at Lila, really looked this time. Okay, he said. What do you suggest instead? There it was. Not automatic praise. Not easy approval. But something else. Space. Space for her to think. Space for her to contribute. Lila explained her solution, clear, direct, no over-apologizing. And for the first time, she didn't soften her words to make them more comfortable for others. She just said what was true. After the meeting, something subtle changed. Not instantly. Not dramatically. But people started engaging with her differently. Jason came over later. Hey, he said, a little awkwardly. Thanks for pointing that out. Lila nodded. No problem. He hesitated. I didn't see it. I know, she said simply, not to belittle him, but because it was true. There was no need to cushion it. And strangely, he didn't seem offended. He seemed respectful. That was the moment Lila began to understand something deeper. Being liked often meant making others comfortable. Being respected meant being honest, even if it created discomfort. But growth isn't a straight line. Just when Lila started to feel more grounded, life tested her again. It happened with Maya. The same friend who had first told her the truth. They had planned a weekend trip, something small, just a break from routine. But a few days before, Maya called. "Hey, I might need to cancel," she said. Something came up. Old Lila would have immediately said, "It's okay, don't worry, we can do it another time." She would have buried her disappointment to keep things smooth. This time, she paused. "I'm disappointed," Lila said honestly. There was a silence on the other end. Not angry. Just surprised. "Yeah," Maya said slowly. "I figured. I understand things come up," Lila continued, "but this was important to me." Another pause. Then Maya sighed softly. "You've changed." Lila felt that familiar tension rise again. Not defensive. Just aware. "Yeah," she said. "I have." The silence stretched longer this time. And in that silence, Lila felt the old fear creeping back. What if she doesn't like this version of me? But then Maya spoke again. "Honestly," she said. "It's kind of refreshing." Lila blinked. "What? You're actually saying what you feel instead of pretending everything's fine," Maya said. "It's real." Something inside Lila relaxed. Not everything had to break. Some relationships could grow. That night, Lila sat by her window again, the same place she used to scroll through endless requests. But now, the quiet felt different. Not empty. Intentional. She started noticing changes in herself. Small but powerful ones. She no longer rushed to respond to every message. She no longer explained herself excessively. She no longer apologized for having limits. And most importantly, she started respecting her own time. At work, the shift became clearer over the next month. Greg began involving her in higher-level discussions, not because she was the most available, but because she was the most thoughtful. "Lila, what's your take on this? Do you see any risks here? Would you approach this differently?" These weren't requests for effort. They were requests for judgment. And that was different. One evening, as the office began to empty, Greg stopped by her desk. "Hey," he said. Lila looked up. "I've noticed something," he continued. She waited. "You're different than you were a few months ago." Lila gave a small nod. "Yeah." Greg crossed his arms lightly. "At first, I thought you were pulling back." "I was," she said honestly. "From things that weren't sustainable." He considered that. Then he said something she didn't expect, "I respect that." Not, "I liked you better before." Not, "You've changed too much." Just, respect. That word carried weight. More than all the casual appreciation she used to get. Because it wasn't given easily. It was earned, but respect came with its own reality. Not everyone stayed. Some people drifted away completely. Friends who only reached out when they needed something, stopped reaching out. Colleagues who relied on her constant availability, found someone else. And at first, that felt like rejection. But over time, Lila saw it differently. It wasn't rejection. It was alignment. The people who stayed were the ones who valued her, not just her usefulness. At first, you rarely get both. Because respect requires boundaries, and boundaries are uncomfortable. But over time, the right people adjust. The right opportunities come. The right version of you emerges. Lila walked to her window, looking out at the city lights. For the first time in a long time, she felt something steady. Not approval. Not validation. But something stronger. Self-respect. And that changed everything.